Hand wave to get attention. Hand wave. How's it going, everybody? Thank you so much for being here at the webinar. My name is Vincent Kelly, and hello to everybody on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, and Zoom. So very nice to have you all here. For this webinar, if you have any questions as we're going through it, you can pop your comments into the comments box on Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram. And for anybody that's on Zoom, you can literally put your comments into the chat or your questions as we're going along. And I might ask for some examples and you can participate if you like. And for those people on Zoom, I'll be able to see those directly because I've got Zoom opened up beside me and all the other channels are feeding in through Zoom. So yeah, you've got a direct line. So to start off with, I just say hello to anybody I can see. I can't see people on Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram. They're just out there. But I can see people on Zoom. So just want to say hello to Seamus, Maria, Carla, Yvonne, Bobby, and Eric is hosting at the moment. So folks, thank you so much for joining me tonight. It would be great if you wouldn't mind popping into the chat where you're logging in from or where you're from. I like to find out that at the beginning of every webinar because, you know, sometimes when there's people from countries far away, like I've had people, like I had a whole bunch of teachers from Pakistan join me on one of my events and, you know, different people from different parts of Europe. So depending on the audience, I generally leave out certain phrases that people might not understand that are kind of unique to, you know, Ireland, England, and that kind of thing, you know. So if you could pop into the chat just where you're from, that would be absolutely fantastic. And Carla, Munich, wow. Carla, I don't know if you know me, but you've touched a place in my heart. This is where I came across this subject. I love Munich. I love Munich very much, especially Leopoldstrasse. Lovely. Holly, Ireland. Fab, Holly, excellent. What part? Any chance you could let us know what part? Stick it in a city or a county, anything. Doesn't matter, you don't have to. Limerick, okay, lovely, lovely, gorgeous. Myself and my wife stayed down there in Limerick some time back. It was lovely. We were going to the cliffs of Moher. Beautiful, beautiful area. And Bobby from Kerry. Hi, Bobby. Thank you very much for joining us all the way from the kingdom. I was at a wedding there many years ago down in Abbeyfield. Yeah, lovely area, lovely area. Right, folks, well, thank you so much. Anybody else who wants to pop in, your county, your country, pop it into the chat and I'll catch them as we're going along. I normally catch up on the comments, okay? So thank you very much for that. Now, this particular webinar is called Controlling Your Negative Emotions, all right? Now, as are most of my webinars, this webinar is based on this book called Dianetics. Dianetics means through the mind, and I came across this in Munich, Carla, in 1992, many years ago, through the mind. And it's basically how the mind affects the body and affects your emotions and so forth, okay? So that's that. And it was written by this gentleman. His name is L. Ron Hubbard. Now, this fellow is probably more famous for the subject that he developed after Dianetics, which is called Scientology. And that word means the study of knowledge. Skio means to know, logos basically means knowledge. And that's the thing that, you know, you might have heard of Tom Cruise and John Travolta and all these movie stars. That's the kind of thing. So tonight, the webinar is going to be primarily based on this particular manual, which came before it. There'll be a couple of other bits and pieces in, but primarily based on this manual. And if you do have any questions about the connection between the two, because people have heard this and that about all sorts of different subjects, if you have any questions, send a little message in there to Eric, a direct message, and he'll answer any questions that you have. Eric is hosting. Okay, folks. So the promise in the next roughly 45 minutes, if you can stop me talking for any length of time, for the next 45 minutes, the promise is you are going to learn the basics of what you need to do to control your negative emotions and to help others with theirs. Because we all have a very strong desire to help other people. So it's not just about, like when I deal with people on the webinar, yes, you are here for help as well. But you know what I found more often than not is that the people that show up on my webinars, yes, they're interested in helping themselves, but in many cases, they're wanting to help themselves so that they can help somebody else. So it's very admirable, and I think it's very good. It's a very good purpose. Okay, for those of you who stay till the end, there is a special offer which I want to tell you about. It's a special thing, but only if you stay till the end. Obviously, you're not going to find out about it until you stay till the end. So if you could, that would be great. If during this webinar you have the television on, would you mind switching it off and just give this your full attention, please? Because I really just want you to get this data, okay? And I'll try to keep it as entertaining for you as possible. I might do a dance, or, you know, whatever you want. Pretend to be one of these artists that just does that and kind of keep your attention. I don't know, whatever it is. I'll try my best. As for myself, I give you a very quick bit of history of me. I grew up in the countryside down in Kildare. For anybody not from Ireland, it's a county not too far from Dublin. And grew up in the countryside, moved to Dublin in the 90s to study personnel management as part of a business studies degree course. Not really sure what I wanted to do. Went traveling in 1992, went to Munich, came across this book. I found it very interesting because I was interested in self-improvement, improving myself and helping other people. And I found it interesting. And when I started reading it, I found, this actually makes sense. It's quite logical. It just makes sense to me. There's no mumbo jumbo. It's very straightforward. And so I learned to use Dianetics to help others first. Of course, that was me at the time. Nothing wrong with me. Everybody else, I'll sort everybody else out first. So I learned it to help others. It really, really helped them. And I got great results for a long time. And then I said, you know what? I'll try it on myself too. And I got fantastic results. And I'll tell you a little bit more about that later. So I've been lecturing, promoting the subject. I'm a trained Dianetics counselor. And I've been doing this for over 25 years. So I know the subject pretty well. And so at the end of this webinar, I'm going to kind of leave a little slot open for any questions and answers. So if you've got questions, specific questions for me on the subject matter, you can ask me. And I'll do my best to answer you. Okay, I think there might be somebody in the waiting room there as well. Okay, perfect. All right, so let's get going and let's launch into this. This area of negative emotions affects everybody, right? So I have experience on this. When I was a young man, back when I was a young fella, I used to kind of get very frustrated very easily and had a little bit of a temper, as my family might tell you, a little bit of a temper, got very angry about things and, whatever. And it did cause a bit of problem for me because I sometimes said things that I didn't really, or I shouldn't really have said, did things that I shouldn't really have done, made decisions that I shouldn't really have made. So I made a few mistakes along the line. And that was because of just reacting, just losing the temper and just not really thinking logically at the time. Okay, so I have my own experience on this. Now, before we launch into the practicalities of this webinar, what I'd like to find out from you, and this is so that I can steer the webinar so that it benefits you personally, each one of you on this webinar. I want to do this for you so that you get what you want out of this, okay? So what I'd like you to do is write in the chat for me, what is the area, let me just rephrase it. What's the negative emotion that you want to handle? Okay. In other words, why are you at this webinar? Would you mind popping that into the chat? What is the negative emotion that you want to handle? And what I want to do is I want to make it just a very short list of them so that I can kind of touch off each part and make sure that it's kind of relevant to everybody. So if you could, and if you don't mind, and you don't have to, but I'd like it if you did, pop into the chat just where the negative emotions are affecting you and what is it that you want to improve, or maybe you want to help somebody else. Maybe it's somebody else that you want to address, and that would be great. Okay, so I've got a few coming in, and hello to the people who I didn't say hello to at the beginning. Sheriff, Dono, and Niall. I think I said hello to Yvonne. I did, and everybody else. Yeah. Okay. Self-esteem. Okay. Thank you, Sheriff. Very good. Okay, next one, anxiety and fear. Okay, thank you. Very good, thank you, Bobby. Holly, sadness and anxiety. Okay, thank you very much. Okay, just making a note of them so that I can kind of put it down. Impatience. Okay, thank you, Carla. Thank you very much. Okay, Yvonne, financially struggling. Okay, now, so what's the emotion that goes with that then, Yvonne? Is it worry? Like, are you worried about it? Is it stress? Are you stressed out about it? What is the exact thing? That's kind of like more of a situation. Okay, so in any event, I'll write down the area. Okay, stress. Thank you very much, Yvonne. Okay, folks, thank you so much. So let's go over some basics here, and then we will get into the nitty-gritty. Okay, so we'll start at the beginning, and what I'm going to show you here is a little diagram which explains where emotions fall in the sequence of importance. And then I'm going to go over 3 things that are external, which you can use to help you emotionally, and 1 thing which is internal. Okay, so let's have a look at this. Okay, so here we are, and everybody is trying to, well, we're all trying to survive. Okay, because I've already put this. Okay, we're all trying to survive. We're all trying to exist for as long as possible. We're all trying to do better. Everybody on this webinar, you're here because you want to do better. You want to improve. You want to survive. You want to keep going. And you want that to get bigger and bigger and for as long as possible. Okay? And then there's a scale. There's a scale of survival. So some people are surviving very well. Some people are surviving pretty well. And then as we go down here, we go to the opposite of survival. Can anybody put down in the chat what would be the opposite of surviving? If you're not surviving, what are you doing? Anybody want to volunteer an answer? What would be the opposite of survive? If you're not surviving, what are you doing? Okay, struggling. Thriving. Struggling would be more so down here, yeah. Thriving would be up this way. Thriving means doing well. Yvonne, just getting by. Okay, yeah, good. Anybody else? Okay, I'm going to put this down here at the bottom. And this is going to sound horrible. I'm sorry. But here we go. If you're not surviving, if you're not going on that road to surviving, anybody want to stick it in? Opposite to survive is, if you're not surviving, you are dying. Okay, that is the ultimate opposite to survive. Thank you, Holly. Exactly. Yeah. So basically, the actions that you take on a daily basis, whether it's to do with your job, your health, your relationship, your kids, your community, whatever actions that you take determines whether you're going to keep going or whether you're going to hit this area eventually. So for example, if your actions are positive and you are, you're keeping yourself healthy, you're working at your job hard, you're studying whatever, you're improving relationships, you're generally going to survive. Whereas if you are, not turning up for work, playing video games all day, every day, drinking a bottle of vodka a day, and that is your decision, and those are your actions, the longer that goes on, the more close you arrive down into death, and on the way down here, you'll feel this thing called pain. Unfortunately, that is the warning signal that you're on your way that way. And it kind of repels you to kind of go back up this way, because up at the top here, we have this beautiful thing, and it's called pleasure. That's what we want to basically feel good. We want to do things that make us feel good and be happy. This is pleasure. Okay. Now, so thank you folks for that. Now, your actions that you take and the effort that you use is based on your emotions. Okay. So, if your emotions are positive, which route do you think you're going to take? Exactly. You're going to take the survive route if your emotions are positive. So for example, if you're interested and you're getting up and you're feeling good, you're happy, you're thinking clearly, you're able to make good decisions, you're going to be heading up towards survive. Okay? Whereas if your emotions are negative, and if you're constantly stressed, losing your temper, constantly worried, constantly anxious, you'll be more inclined, I'm not saying go straight to death, but they tend to lead you more in this direction, even by just not doing something that you feel you should do. So for example, if you had a business opportunity and it was a golden opportunity, but because emotionally you're so worried, you're so anxious, you're so afraid, you're so stressed, you miss that opportunity. To a certain degree, you've pulled yourself just slightly down from that middle zone here, okay? So emotions, how you're doing emotionally is really important because it determines your actions and that determines how well you survive. But there is one thing which is more important than both of those in terms of a sequence. Something comes before emotions. Dun, da, da, da. Okay, and that thing is thought. Okay, what you think and how you think happens so fast that you don't often even spot it. In other words, you could be getting stressed out over something, okay? And you think, okay, it's the weather. I'm stressed over the weather. But something happened here to affect those emotions. So for example, you could be feeling great, really happy one day, okay, feeling fantastic. And then all of a sudden you feel stressed and you feel angry because somebody gave out to you or because of a stressful situation. And then all of a sudden you're not happy anymore. Well, what you're observing is that somebody annoyed you or somebody stressed you out or you were financially struggling or you were a bit shy in a certain circumstance. But what actually happened was something changed in your thinking first. And that's why in this webinar, we're going to go over this and this, which I'll tell you about in part 2. That's why in this webinar, we're going to go over 2 things. The external aspect, okay, which is important, and things that you need to learn to help you emotionally, and the internal aspect, which is very important to know because if you don't, it is going to affect the external aspect, okay? So the bottom line is, every single person on this webinar, and thank you for being here, you are here because you want to survive. You are here because you want your emotions to be positive, because you know that if your emotions are positive, you're going to survive better. But senior to this, what we're going to be looking at tonight is your thinking, how you think. So we're going to have a look at the external aspects first, and then we will tackle the internal, okay? And if anybody's any questions so far, you can pop them into the chat, and I will get to them ASAP, okay? So now, folks, at this point, I don't know what it is about me, but I like to give a lot of data, and I hope I don't lose anybody along the way. And if I do, just tell me to stop, please. Just tell me, Vincent, please put the brakes on. Please tell me to stop, okay? Because I'm just going to pound in with this data. So there are 3 things I want to tell you about that need to be understood, okay? This is the external aspect first. When I say external, I mean the emotions aspect and the actions as opposed to the thought. All right. So the first thing we're going to have a look at is what is a negative emotion, okay? Now, there's a book that I'm going to show you at the end, and it's called The Emotional Tone Scale, okay? And this gives basically, the booklet, it's like a little mini course, a list of all the different major emotional points that people hit on a long-term basis and on a temporary basis, because we all We're not all waking up out of bed, including myself. I don't wake up out of bed every morning going, oh, it's a wonderful day. Oh, the stars, the sun is out. What I dragged myself out, hit the floor, and then after about 10 minutes, I'm with it a little bit better. There are some basic levels of emotion, and we're just going to go over these first. Okay, happy is the first one. Person's getting on with life, satisfied, things are going well. Okay, bored. All right. Person's not really defeated, on the fence, doing all right, getting by. Next one. Antagonistic. This is where a person becomes critical. Antagonistic means unfriendly. So, for example, if you've ever been stuck behind a slow driver on a motorway and you have to get to work, and you're like, oh God, if that person could only hear what I'm telling them right now through the windscreen, that's called antagonism. Okay, it's direct, kind of critical. All right. Next one is anger. All right, that's pretty simple. Breaking chairs, etc. Next one, which is sometimes quite hard to spot, covert hostility. What that means, covert means hidden. Okay, and hostile just means somebody who is opposed to you. They don't like you. They're against you. And so this particular level of this scale is basically where somebody is very nice to your face, tells you everything that you need to hear or that they want you to hear, very friendly. But then when you're gone, stabs you in the back. Okay, so it's not real friendliness. It's like they don't like you, but they're pretending to like you. And it's all very horrible, basically. Okay, but often very hard to detect, because sometimes a person has a lovely smile, they appear to be fine, but in actual fact, behind that smile is not really a genuinely nice person to you at that particular moment in time. And we all go through this at some point. Okay. Next one, as we go down here, we're going to go into the next zone, fear. Okay. Person's afraid of things. In this area, we've got anxiety, we've got worry, we've got stress. Okay. Next one here, we have grief. And the next one, we have apathy. Okay. Now, grief is basically really sad. Apathy is a situation where a person has given up. All right. Now, so remember we had this route to survive, okay? And then we have death. Okay. I have a question for you now, and this is your next exercise. Everybody goes up and down these on a daily basis. Okay? Like, for example, I get up out of bed, I think I'm down here. I don't quite hit these. I might stub my toe off the bed and hit anger for a while, but I usually generally end up somewhere around here. Okay? So everybody has different moods throughout the day, and they fluctuate. Okay? And it's quite natural to have these all right? And but every single person has a level where they are normally at. So, for example, I could be, let's say, apathetic. Let's say if I lose somebody close to me, okay? And I am quite an emotional person, actually. I could be hearing grief for a couple of days, okay? But then I'll come back up to this area, which is my normal, from my perspective, emotional level. Another person could be here continuously, always angry, an always angry person, always angry. Occasionally, they go up to happiness, but then soon after, they come back down to anger again. Okay? And the same story with below, a person could be in fear all the time, always nervous, always worried, always panicking about things. Occasionally, they get up to anger, but then they come back down again to their normal level. Now, here's the question. I am going to draw a line on this chart, okay? And I want you to tell me, where do the negative emotions kick in? Is it below happiness, below boredom, below antagonistic, below anger, below covert hostility, below fear, below grief, or below apathy. Where should I draw the line below? Because below that line will be the negative emotion. So I'm going to draw one either here, 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 here. Where should I draw the line? Below number 1, below number 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, or 8. Where should I draw the line? Okay? Where should I draw the line? Which determines that the below ones are negative emotions. Where should I draw the line? Okay? Pop them into the chat if you don't mind. Yvonne, do you have tips to stop sleeplessness? Maybe I'd have to dig them up. But maybe Eric can reach out to you separately on that. Sleeplessness. You know, a lot of sleep problems are coming from stress as well. So if you handle what I'm going to go into tonight, it's definitely going to make an improvement for sure. Okay, Holly thinks below happy, so below number 1. Sheriff, below 1, below happy. Okay. Anybody else want to volunteer? Where should I draw the line? I'm going to draw a line here somewhere. Because anything below the line is going to be the negative emotion category, and anything above the line is going to be the positive one. Anybody else? Going once? Carla? But even if emotions are negative, they can still be useful, can't they? Everybody, as I mentioned, goes into these particular levels at some point in life. But I'm going to cover that in a second, Carla. I'm going to cover that in a second because I have the answer in the next explanation I'm going to give. Okay, so the line is going to get drawn here. Okay. Look, okay, we know happiness. If you're happy and you're interested in life, what's going to happen? You're going to go that way. Definitely. You're interested in life. You get up in the morning. You've got creative ideas. You're doing things. Things are going well. Okay. Boredom also fits into that category. Somebody who's bored is still not defeated. They just need a new game, something that interests them. But they're still easy to turn from that bored person into a positive person just by finding something interesting to do, you know. Now, when it gets down below these things here, and this is to answer Carla's question, you can hit these things occasionally. For example, if somebody is stealing your bicycle from outside your front door, okay, you're not going to go out and skip outside the door. Hey, how's it going, guys? Nice day. Beautiful day. Absolutely wonderful. Great to see us all. Great to see us. How are you getting on with the bike? How is it? How's that big thing that you're using? Is it heavy? You know, you're not going to go out like that. You're going to go out here, most likely. Anger. And that anger is like a force flow to get that done. To say, okay, guys, get your hands off my bike or else. Okay? And similarly, if you lose somebody close to you, it's quite natural to hit this grieving level because you will be grieving and you need to get the tears out. And it is quite natural, and it is, to answer Carla's question, useful for that particular moment. However, one should not get stuck in these. And this is the problem. It would be fine if occasionally we get angry from time to time over something and we return to the natural level. I can tell you, having delivered Dianetics sessions to a lot of people over the years, your natural level is there. That is your natural level. When you go below these are things that you consider negative because you just don't like them. People don't like to feel angry all the time. They don't want to be in fear. They don't want to be in apathy. They don't want to be constantly critical. Even if they are, they don't necessarily want to be because it doesn't make them feel good. So yes, sometimes if, let's say, you are running a business and all your employees are sitting around doing nothing. Okay, slamming a table, getting a bit antagonistic, saying, guys, come on. I'm paying you guys 50 euros an hour. I need a job done. You know, so it could be antagonistic. But then you get back up here to where you naturally live. And so what happens is, and it's the purpose of this webinar, people get stuck at these lower levels. They get stuck in these lower emotional levels and they just can't shake them. So people wake up in the morning and they're antagonistic or they're angry, or they're with their partner, they're always antagonistic or angry with their partner. or they're constantly worried or stressed out, which is this section here. And this is where the emotions get stuck and you can't shake them. Okay? So below here are generally what we consider the negative emotions, because if you engage in them too long and too much, they will usually send you this route, not that route. They're generally trying to stop things, trying to control things with force, trying to destroy things, and this one is the giving up, often giving up and worrying and nothing gets done type of area. Okay, so what I'm saying is this: there is nothing wrong with experiencing an emotion. We all have it and it's natural. Honestly, it's natural. But getting stuck in these lower levels isn't really where you should be and where you live. And that doesn't mean that Vincent delivering the webinar is always going around skipping in the meadow going, oh, isn't life wonderful? The flowers and the trees, oh, it's amazing. You know, if I see somebody getting their handbag stolen, okay, I am liable, and it's happened many times, to run after the person in this antagonism area and get it handled. Okay? And it's stressful. But usually it clicks off very quickly, and then I'm back up to this natural zone where I feel much better. Okay, so next thing. So thank you very much for your participation on that one. When you consider negative emotions, it's generally in this bracket down here. It's below that line. And so what I want you to do is be able to experience an emotion, but then get back up here. Now, next thing. And this is very important, and I cover this at a lot of my webinars. Okay. Again, each one of you who are here, thank you for being here. Each one of you wants to survive. Okay? You want to survive, and you want to do better in life, and you want to be successful. Otherwise, you would not have signed up for this webinar tonight. I'm sorry to say. You want to do well. You want to improve. You want to learn something. Okay? Now, unfortunately, when you go on your road to success, you are going to meet certain people along the way who don't necessarily have your good intentions at heart. They don't have your success at heart. So you're going to meet people occasionally who might want to drag you down directly or indirectly. Now, there's a booklet I'm going to introduce at the end of this webinar. It's called The Cause of Suppression. And what it goes over is that most people are fine. They fluctuate emotionally, but in general, you can rely on them. Or they're not such a bad person. They might be suffering, but you know what? They're not against you. They're not making your life difficult. They're not stressing you out. They're not criticizing you every day of the week. But then you get a certain percentage of people who see you wanting to succeed and just want to tear you down for no good reason, except maybe to protect themselves or whatever it is that's going on in their own head. I'll tell you more about that at the end, okay? So basically, what they do is press your buttons, and I'm going to go into this in a minute. When you are doing something and you feel happy, and you meet somebody, and by the way, if you can, I'd like you to think about this while I'm explaining it, and if you have an example, would you put it in the chat? If you think of something, I'd like to know if you have, and put it in the chat. Okay, you're feeling happy, you're doing well, you're going to work, you want to get your promotion. Okay? I know you work in an office and you want to do better. You want to become a manager or something. Okay? And then you meet some friend, colleague in the office who, politely reminds you every day that jokes about you and tells you, oh, you're going for the manager job. Right. You're going for the manager job. Are you serious? And you're serious. You're going for the manager job. Come on now. Come on now. Get real. Come on. Get real. Sure, you wouldn't be able for that. Look, I'm your friend, and I'm telling you, don't go for that manager job. Stay with me here. In fact, I'd recommend that you go down into a lower position. Much, much better. In fact, why don't you just stay at home and watch television because as your friend, I think that's the best thing for you. Okay? And you think, oh, well, maybe he's right. Maybe he's right. The first thing somebody who wants to suppress you will do is they'll try to change your thinking. Okay? They'll try to cause self-doubt. They'll try to cause you to lose your self-esteem. And that starts with causing you to change your mind, make you uncertain about yourself, cut you to pieces. Well, has anybody ever seen anything like that? Have you ever experienced that? Pop it into the chat if you have. Just a yes or a no or an example. It would be great. It would be great. Thank you, Yvonne. Anybody else? Please pop it in. I just want to find out if you have experienced that. So the first thing they're going to do is try to change your thinking. Because once they change your thinking, the next thing that's going to get changed, and this is what you're going to notice, is your emotion. Okay? You are feeling happy. Now you're feeling angry. You're feeling stressed out. Just what this guy was looking for. Just what he was looking for. In other words, what somebody will try to do when they want to put you down is they want to affect you emotionally. Because they know that if you're emotionally stressed, you're going to take no action or wrong action. You're going to make mistakes. So to do that, they got to influence your thinking. And very directly or indirectly, try to persuade you, either in a nasty way or a very nice, friendly, I'm your best friend kind of way, to cause you to doubt yourself and to doubt your thinking. Okay? So it's very important to know this. There's much more explained on how to identify these types of people in this booklet, which I'll go over at the very end. And thank you, Yvonne, you've seen it. Holly, you've seen it. Sharon, you've seen it. Okay, good. And it's important to know that, because what you can check out, right, is on days when you're feeling great, you wake up feeling great, and you come home from work and you feel terrible. You're snapping at the kids, you're depressed, you're stressed out or whatever. Have a little look earlier in the day to find out, did anybody try to suppress you? And it could be a very subtle thing. Just have a look. So all I want you to do about this for the moment is just be aware that it exists. There is more that you can learn about it, and it's very important to learn that information, okay? So that's the first thing, and that thought, those guys can basically just try to change your thinking. So you have to be very wary of what they're saying to you. You know, like a salesman, you know, you don't want the jacket. You didn't go into the shop to buy a jacket, but you go out with a jacket because the salesman changed your mind. He's now persuaded you that you need a jacket. And you came in thinking, no, I don't need a jacket, but you're walking out with a jacket. All right, next one. So this one I want to just cover very quickly because I want to save enough time for the bit at the end. And this one is communication. Okay. This is important in terms of emotions, because when you're dealing with people on a day-to-day basis, okay, whether it's family, friends, your partner, your kids, or whatever, what people often do is they want to say something, but then they don't. They want to say something, but then they don't. They say something, but then they don't. And all this stuff stacks up, and that is going to build up on you emotionally. So can I ask a question here? Why is it, you can give me one example, what would be the main reason why a person doesn't communicate things to another person that they know they should say? Like, for example, let's say, I don't know, your boss in work has given you a target and you really don't feel that you can achieve it because you're on a half day or it's unrealistic or whatever. So you just don't say it, you don't say it, you don't say it, you let it build up, and then you get stressed out. So why would you not say these things? Why would you not communicate? So this is the reason. Thank you, Holly. Why is it that you don't say the things that you should say? Okay, pop it into the chat. Don't want confrontation. Very good, Sheriff. Thank you. Holly, not wanting to impose on them, not wanting to come across as weak. Good, okay? I'm just going to take up the first one. Of course, when you communicate with somebody, you can meet confrontation, which can affect your thinking, which is going to affect you emotionally. So you don't want to feel bad, so you avoid the confrontation, so you don't say anything, okay? Because you don't want to feel good, because that confrontation affects your thinking, which affects your emotion. Okay? Thank you, Sharon. Okay, not wanting to impose on them, not wanting to come across as weak. Yeah, so not wanting to impose on them. Yeah, exactly. But then, you've got this idea, I don't want to impose, but I know I should communicate. But then it kind of has the same effect. Very good, Holly. Not wanting to come across as weak. Yeah, okay, good. And so you have this idea, if I communicate, I'm going to come across as weak. But again, things start to stack up and stack up and stack up. Okay? Carla, inability to say no. Good, okay. So, yeah. So if you did say no, and listen, and you can say no in a very polite way, you might be faced with some confrontation. And again, you don't like that because it affects you emotionally, and it shouldn't. If you're in work and you feel really happy, the boss coming down, screaming at you, shouldn't change that happiness from happiness to death or apathy. Because it's only words. Now, if he came across you with a big stick and started popping you on the head, that might be different. But it's just words. They are literally just words. Even if he calls you up and he screams at you down the phone, it's literally only words and vibrations. Like listening to the radio. So it shouldn't affect you so much, but it does because it affects your thinking, which I'm going to go over in a minute, and that affects you emotionally, and you don't want to feel bad. Okay, and Yvonne. So thank you, Carla. Intimidated and fear of the retaliation. Exactly. So you say something, you know it's going to cause some backflash, but that doesn't make you feel good, so you don't want to do it because you know if they respond in an antagonistic way, your thinking is going to change, your emotion is going to change as well, and you want to go home at the end of your day feeling happy and relaxed and have a good night's sleep. Okay. This does not mean, what I'm saying to you here, that you should roar at this person. Or, I'm going to say something and you're wrong and I'm right and you're always wrong, I'm always right, because, we're all right in some ways. The key to it is to be able to communicate clearly, friendly, and directly in a very positive way, and also to be able to listen to what they say, to be able to listen. So you do need to also improve your communication skill. Now, this is also a booklet I'm going to show you at the end. In this booklet, there are lots of exercises that you can learn to do at home with a friend or a family member on how to improve your communication skill, so that when you say things to people and you get a bit of backflash or confrontation, that you're able to handle it and you can deal with it, and you don't just back off into yourself and, it's okay, I'm going to go back and die into my own corner here, so that you can deal with it. So they're basically skills that you can learn on communication. Okay, finally, the most important thing I want to tell you about tonight, and this is what all these points are leading to: thought. How is it? Okay, there's your thought. Why is it that your thought, you're thinking good today, you're in a good mood, you're thinking positively, naturally, feeling good, you're on your way towards surviving, things are going great, your emotions are good, you feel happy, interested, a bit bored, but you're not dying, okay, and your actions are good. What happens to change that thought to a negative? Because that thought happens so fast that often you don't even spot it. What you do spot is your emotions now become negative and your actions then become negative. Okay. Your thoughts come from this. You look at your life, you look at your problems, you look at your pictures, which is a copy of all your experiences from the past. Okay, so for example, as an exercise, okay, little exercise for you, okay? What I want you to do is close your eyes. Now, I'm not going to know if you do this because I can't see anybody, but I'll assume you are. Close your eyes. Now, I want you to remember your breakfast. See if you can get the smell. See if you can get the taste. See if you can get any sounds, sensations. Okay, open your eyes. Now, for anybody who was able to do that, and you were able to remember your breakfast, pop it into the chat or give me just a thumbs up. Let me know, were you able to do it? Did you do it? Could you do it? Okay, Jessica, thank you. Hi, Jessica, by the way, and a couple of other people came in. Diane, hi, Diane. Were you able to do that? Could you remember your breakfast? Okay, well, pop it into the chat if you could. Your mind is a collection of pictures from your past. It's not that complicated, really. Thank you, Yvonne. It's not that complicated. There are some people who will tell you that the mind is all complicated. It's in your brain, and then there's this, and there's that, and you've got a chemical imbalance this, and a chemical imbalance that, and you've got holding the pen in your hand disorder, and then you've got too much going for a walk disorder, and you've got drinking tea disorder because you drink too much tea. There's all sorts of absolutely baloney, in my opinion, labels that people get stuck with to try and explain the mind and how they are emotionally. Okay, Donna, no problem. Hi, Jessica. And Sherrod. Okay, very good. So I wouldn't get into listening to people who tell you that the mind is a very complicated thing. It's all in this piece of meat here, which is not much bigger than a sheep's brain, and you can never understand it. There are basics that I learned and were learned very straightforward way, and that actually do exist. So for anybody who's able to remember their breakfast this morning, when I asked you, what you did was you simply looked at a picture in your mind, and you use these pictures to make decisions, and those decisions are in here in this thought bracket. Oh, I can do that, or I can't do that just yet, but I'm going to learn. Then that affects your emotions and your actions. Now, the problem is there is a part of your mind which is not under your control, and in Dianetics we call this the reactive mind. It affects your thinking, and it is the primary thing which causes you to think negatively, which causes your negative emotions to keep in and keep stuck there. In your reactive mind are two things. Moments of physical pain. For example, if you got bitten by a dog, or you had an operation, or you were in a car crash, or you fell out of a tree as a kid, or you broke your leg falling off a scooter. Physical pain incidents are stored in this reactive mind. Why is it called reactive? Because external things that people say, external things that people do, external things that you see on a daily basis can trigger it off without your consent and can start affecting you emotionally. So for example, if you got bitten by a dog, a white dog, when you were 5, all it would take is for, at the age of 15, a similar looking white dog to pass you by for you to instantly get nervous, okay, or instantly get stressed. If you used to be in a relationship where your partner used to beat you with a stick every day, okay, and that was 10 years ago, physical abuse, beat you with a stick every day, and you've moved on from him, but your reactive mind hasn't moved on, which means that if in the future, for a second, I need some space, if in the future Maybe you're at a meeting, or you try to get into a new relationship, and this person that you're going out with, you're trying to have a good relationship with, one day gets angry and starts shouting at you. Well, what happens is your reactive mind triggers off without your consent and starts affecting your thinking, and then that is going to affect your emotions and causes you to stress down. All this is buried nicely beneath the surface. The second thing that is stored in your reactive mind is loss. If you lose somebody close to you, like a friend or a family member, for example, if, let's say, you lost your mum many years ago, 5 or 6 years ago, or whatever, and you meet somebody, let's say you have a friend, and they want you, because of their own insecurities, to stick with them, okay? And they know by just talking about your mum all the time, mum, your mum, oh God, what would your mum think? Oh, your poor mum. Let's go visit the graveyard every day. Here's a picture of your mum. Here's a picture of an old person. Here's a picture of my mum. And just constantly use those things to keep you at a certain level. Why? Because they know that just by saying those things triggers off your loss on a continuous basis. And without you even realizing it, you're moving and changing from somebody who's happy to somebody who's sad. What I'm trying to get through to you is this, is that your emotions and the negative emotions that you can't get out of, the reason you can't get out of them is because of your, I got rid of it there, your thinking. Thought is boss. Thought is king. Your thinking determines your emotions. And often those thoughts happen so fast you don't even see them. So the more painful things that you have experienced in your past, whether it's a bad relationship, or whether you lost a child, or you lost a business, or you lost your job, or you had some very bad physical experiences, the more of that that's happened, the more external things can trigger you off without your consent. The longer that goes on, and the longer it's not handled, it grows, because every time somebody stresses you out, or you get stressed out or something, this thing gets added to, it gets added to, it gets added to, it gets bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger, to the point where a person can become more reactive, more antagonistic on a daily basis, much more suspicious of people. They used to be open-minded and willing to talk to people, and now they're suspicious of everybody. They don't trust a soul. Okay? Why? Because this thing is just building and building. The person used to be relaxed and now is continuously worried or continuously anxious. What else do we have here? Stress and impatience and so forth. Continuously like that. It's because of a build-up of things in this reactive mind. And remember, this reactive mind is called reactive because it reacts. It doesn't think, it just reacts. And it is not under your control. It just kicks in and affects your thinking, which affects your emotion. Okay, now I've got one last exercise before I suggest to you what would be the next course of action, okay? Can you give me an example of something that you have noticed in your life that can trigger you off? In other words, something that can take you from a positive emotion, whether it's happiness or enthusiasm or interest, right down to a negative one. Just give me one example. You might have many, but please take this opportunity to write down an example in the chat of one thing that makes you react. Got it, Shareth, your mother. Thank you. And you know something interesting is that the very interesting thing about parents is that a lot of your stuff from your past often involves that person in some way, directly or indirectly. Whether they were giving you sympathy at the time or whether they were involved in it, they just press the buttons without you even realizing it. So a very good example, Shared, because it comes up a lot, family. Okay, Carla, a certain tone of voice. Great. All right. So the person comes in with this nasty vibration of, and what should happen is you can maintain your smile and your relaxed nature. That's what should happen. But instead of that, you get all nervous and stressed, and you're angry or worried or whatever. All that's happening there, Carla, with that certain tone of voice, the person that's using it knows, in many cases, that they can use that tone of voice to control how you think and thereby control your emotions. Because all they're doing is triggering off something in here. They most likely don't even know what's in there, but they know that that tone of voice triggers this, causes you to doubt yourself, then the negative emotions kick in. Brilliant. Thank you very much. And Yvonne, constant criticism. Same story. Person finds the angle, uses that angle directly and deliberately in many cases, because they know that if they use that tone with you, they can control the daylights out of you. Make you super sympathetic, make you feel sorry for them, make you do what they want, make you feel guilty, these kind of things. Why do they do it? That's explained. It's a bit more of a deep question, but it's explained in this booklet, which I'm going to show you at the end. Fear, Bobby. If a person is in fear continuously, remember that emotional level I went into? That fear is something that means that basically they're stuck at that point of that emotional level, which means that something is affecting their thinking, and that is affected by this part of the reactive mind. Okay, that is the source. The only permanent and good handling for that is to clear up this stuff here. So people ask me, as you have just done, Bobby, and thank you, Vincent, give me a couple of quick tips on how I can be happy for the rest of my life. I go, well, all you got to do is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and all grand happy days. We're all great. Okay. I could give people tips, but often they're just temporary things. They don't last for a long time. They're good, and if you do them continuously, they help, but you need to get to the root of fear, and the root is that reactive mind. And just to answer your question, Bobby, the very first thing I get if somebody's in fear continuously is to take regular walks on their own and look at things. Go walk around the block, look at things, and find things that are not being a threat. Okay, so if you have a friend or a family member who's in fear, you recommend to them, or suggest to them, or even bring them out for a quiet walk and have them look at things that are not being a threat to them, and find things, and just do that daily. Okay, so there's a little bit of a tip. There's a booklet which explains all this fully, Bobby. I don't have it tonight. It's called Solutions for a Dangerous Environment, and it kind of goes into that a little bit more. But yeah, that's that. Okay, so folks, summary then. The basic reason why you experience negative emotions that you cannot shake is because of a part of your mind called the reactive mind, which gets triggered without your consent. It affects your thinking, which affects how you feel. This can affect where you are emotionally on a daily basis. It can affect your ability to handle suppressive people who want to put you down and who want to criticize you, so that you avoid them. And it can also affect your ability to communicate. Because what happens is, when you try to communicate, somebody is opposed to what you're saying, and then you get all stressed out again. This is the stress factory. You're carrying around a factory which creates stress. And that has to be cleared. In Dianetics, which is this one here, and I'm going to show you in a minute, it goes over exactly how to clear up this. It's done with 2 people, and it has to do with locating and handling these past bad experiences in a very exact way so that they are completely cleared up. Okay, so folks, it's 9 o'clock. I want to show you very briefly before we finish off, and at the end of this I'll open if anybody wants to stay for questions and answers, you can. I want to just show you what I've put together for anybody who's interested in learning more. Okay, the first thing is the Dianetics book. And let me just tell you a little bit about this. Okay, so we've got the real source of unwanted behavior, thought, and emotions. The real source is the reactive mind that I've explained here. There's a lot more given in the book, a lot more examples, and it's made abundantly clear exactly what the source of that is. So let's not just cover it all up with flowers and say, oh, it'll be all grand in about 10 years' time. Let's really confront it and get in and handle the root of the problem. Okay, next part is full discovery of the parts of the mind and how they work. So you're gonna, like, honestly, folks, each one of you are carrying around a very important thing called the mind. You're carrying it around with you. You need to understand at least the basics. At least. You know, when you're driving your car, you at least need to know how to steer it, how to put the accelerator on and the brake. Okay, you need to know those things. And the same with this here. Even if you don't know every single word of this book, you need to know the basics. Okay, next bit. Exact step-by-step therapy to fully use your mind to unlock your full potential. So in this book, there are 3 books. Book 1 is about the end result of Dianetics. Dianetics is done until an exact point and no further. Book 2 is about how your mind works and the parts of the mind. And book 3 in this book shows you the exact steps that you do in order to fully clear up this reactive mind so that it's never going to affect you again. And so that you're back to yourself again and you can maintain that positive position emotionally. The book has been translated into 50 languages. And if you get it tonight, before the end of the webinar, it's sent with free shipping. Now, I'm going to have a special offer coming up in a minute, but I want to show you a little bit what I'm going to do. For anybody, and this is why I wanted you to stay tonight, the 3 booklets I'm going to go over as follows. Normally, I just promote this book, Dianetics, okay? But what I'm going to do tonight, I've got these other booklets that I've showed you. The Emotional Tone Scale booklet, which I showed you at the beginning, where you can find out exactly where you are on the emotional scale. And there's a big chart at the end, which you can use to find out where you are and also to help you to find out where other people are on a long-term basis emotionally, so that you can predict whether they're going to be a friend or whether they're not going to be a friend, okay? But anyway, you can also use this to see where you're at emotionally and also to help yourself rise up the scale. So that's a very simple, easy to understand book. There's pictures and there's also a free online course that you can do with this book, okay? So I'm going to put that in as well. So we're going to start, that's the emotion tone scale from the bottom. We take the top one. Cause of suppression. Again, this is absolutely vital data. You need to know, as you're going through life, who not to get involved with and who to get involved with. And as I mentioned at the beginning, again, there's loads of pictures of this. There are 12 characteristics that you can learn to help you identify people who will be mainly intending to drag you down versus people who will be good friends to have around and will support you. And it's really vital to know that data. And in this book, if you are being affected by somebody who puts you down a lot or who is constantly hostile towards you, this is absolutely vital because it gives you the tools to learn how to handle that, okay? And also at the back of this book, there's exercises, there's a little workbook that you can do, and also there's a free online course that goes with that as well. Okay, and then finally, the communication booklet. This is, again, a godsend, in my opinion. You learn all the basic factors of what good communication is. And it's not just talking, blabbing. It's about listening as well. And there are practical exercises that you can do with a friend or a family member. And you just practice your communication skills until you're at a point where you can say the things that you want to say. And even if you do get a bit of backlash, you're able to handle it and you don't go down the tubes. So this is a very practical book/course. And again, there's a free online course that goes with this booklet. Okay, so you read the booklet and you can answer the questions online, and there'll be somebody online who can help you to correct those. Okay, so now, in terms of cost, the 3 of these together, plus the Dianetics book, would be €35. So €20 for the Dianetics book and €5 for each of these booklets. It's not much and it's very, very valuable. If you get it tonight, it'll be €25. So I'm going to be putting the offer on the chat here for you. And okay, thank you, Eric, has already done it. If you get it tonight, before the end of the webinar, and I'll be hanging on here for about 10 minutes or whatever, so to answer any questions. If you get it before the end of the webinar, you get it for €25, okay? And look, the reason for that is it's just to encourage you to do it, to go for it, to get some basics so that you can learn yourself. It's all very well listening to how amazing Vincent is and getting these points across, but it's much better if you have all of the information. You can sit at home in your own spare time and make sense of it yourself and make your own mind up about it, okay? So that's the Dianetics book, which is 500 pages. It's got a beautiful glossary at the back of it, very, very clear communication in it. And the 3 booklets, the emotional tone scale, which helps you to determine where you and others are emotionally, the cause of suppression, so that you can find and deal with people who put you down in life, and then the communication booklet to help you improve your communication skill, okay? So that's the offer. I really do hope that you get that tonight, and I really strongly encourage you. Okay, now that sales speech was out of the way, I want to open the floor for anybody who has any questions that you want to ask me, and if you do, please pop it into the chat, and I would encourage you to do so. Anything that you have on what I've gone over tonight, the books, my own experiences, any questions at all, please take this opportunity to pop them into the chat, and I will do my very best to answer them for you. I wish I had some music to play in the background while I drink my water. Okay, and yeah, so just if you have any questions on any of those aspects that I went over, even the communication aspect, the emotional levels, the suppression, or this reactive mind that I went over, or in fact the materials, pop them into the chat. And if you can't think of it right now, just take a moment to just absorb it. I'm going to give you 1 or 2 more examples of why I got involved in this, and for a few minutes, and then we'll wrap up. So at the end of the day, you came to this webinar because you wanted to find out something to improve yourself, okay? So if all these materials did, these books that I'm showing to you, if all they did was help you to be able to control your negative emotions and be naturally that positive person, you know, it is going to be worth it, right? Because at the end of the day, those positive emotions are going to start affecting you emotionally, and they're going to start affecting you in terms of your actions. You're going to be doing more constructive actions in your life in terms of your health, in terms of relationships, family, work, your community, I don't know, broader mankind. And even if it only helped you to clear up all that built up negative emotion from the past, which keeps affecting you in present, even if it just cleared up that, it would be worth it. I think you'll agree with that. Okay? Okie dokie. Okay, that's very good. Okay, Jessica, that's great. Thank you very much for the direct message. I normally don't read out the direct messages, but Jessica, thank you so much. That's fantastic. Yvonne, Carla, no problem, Carla. Thank you so much for joining us from Munich. Good to have you, and I hope to get over to Munich at some day in the future. I love Munich, and I wish you all the best. Okay. Yvonne, can you change the reactive mind? Does meditation, affirmations help? Okay, so Yvonne, there are lots of people out there with lots of different solutions, okay? And I'm a kind of an anti-drug kind of a person. I don't like people going down the whole drugs route and pumping themselves full of medication to handle stress and so forth. So anything outside of that, you know, it's at least positive. So things like, as you mentioned, meditation, these things do help people, you know, and I have many people that I've known who've got great benefit from meditation and so forth, and it's helped them both emotionally and physically. And again, with the other one here is affirmations, which is basically positive statements, saying things positively, okay? And there's nothing wrong with these things. What I have found, and the reason why I tackled and learned this subject only, because I found out about these other subjects in prior to coming across Dianetics, is that the main idea with Dianetics is to get to the root, to get to the reason why you stress in the first place, the reason why you get so anxious, you lose your temper, you think so negatively. Because if you don't get to the root of it, you're going to have to keep doing these things to help you to cope with the negative thinking and the stress that's coming up in a daily life. And so many people do meditate and do positive affirmations because these are things that they need to keep in and that they do help them. But the problem is that if you don't clear up the root, you have to keep doing that and keep doing it. Whereas if this stuff is cleared up, if you really dig in and find the root and it's handled properly, and this is what the Dianetics book is about, if it's handled properly and fully, then you're going to be naturally relaxed without effort, naturally feeling good, naturally thinking creatively and positively without having to say, read the affirmations in the morning. And as I said, there's nothing wrong with them. But I'm just saying, you don't necessarily, once this stuff is cleared up, you don't necessarily have to have them because it's just coming naturally without any effort. And so, as I said, the reason I stuck with this is because it's more of a permanent solution. Once these things are cleared up using the procedure in Dianetics, they're done. They're clear. They are never going to affect you again. Done. Dusted. If they're handled properly, done. Never going to affect you again. And so what you're trying to do, and what we're trying to do, is restore a person's ability and restore a person's happiness and ability to live life and be themselves. And this area of relaxation and natural positive thinking comes in at those higher levels of emotions, which is where I told you people are at. So I hope that helps you, Yvonne, on that question. So the question is, can you change the reactive mind? The answer is yes. And what you're trying to do with this reactive mind, using the exact 10-step procedure in the Dianetics book, you're finding things that are in here, you're locating things, incidents that happen to you, which are nicely buried. And sometimes it's going to be a bit like the procedure of peeling an onion. So you peel off the outer layers and then you find out what's underneath. But once you do, you get to the root and that gets cleared up. And what you're doing is you're taking away the stress from the reactive mind, and those incidents are then going to be filed back up where they should be in your normal analytical mind as just memories without the pain. And that doesn't mean that you're going to forget people that you lost, or you all of a sudden turn into a robot where you don't care about anybody. It's not like that, As I said, like, I've done a lot of this, and I've received a lot of it myself, and I've delivered a lot of it to other people. And I tell you, it frees you up emotionally so that you can experience these other emotions, but then you can get back to just being happy again very quickly afterwards. So, for example, with myself on a daily basis, like, I pretty much feel good practically all the time, honestly. But if I lose somebody close to me, I get very close to people. If I lose somebody close to me, I can get very emotional. I can get very upset, and I might need to cry for a few hours or days. But once that's out and I've handled it, I can come back to myself again and live again. And it doesn't take me long to recover. It doesn't take me long to recover at all. Whereas before, I'd be just hanging on to it, hanging on to it. Okie doke. All right. So, yeah. And look, folks, at the end of the day, the reason I am recommending, people say to me, Vincent, please just give me a few tips. Like, I think Bobby might have asked me just a few tips. A lot of people come to my webinars, oh, Vincent, just give me 5 tips that I can do this week, get me by, Tips are fine, but they just don't last, because you have to, keep doing it. It's better to get yourself educated. And so what I do to people, first of all, when they come to me looking for help, I say, look, First things first, education. Get yourself some education on what this is about. And then let's talk. Get some basics into you. And it also gives people the opportunity to really decide for themselves, because the people that progress well in Dianetics, when you want to receive some Dianetics counseling or whatever, are generally people who have decided themselves, not because I've told them to do it, but because they've read the book, it makes sense, and they want to do it for themselves, not for anybody else. Right, folks. So does anybody else have any questions that you want me to answer before we drop off or we finish off for the evening? And I want to thank you all so much for staying with me so long. I really appreciate it. A few left there in the chat. Or if you have anything that you feel you have gained or learned from this webinar, I'd really like to know it. And again, if you pop it into the chat, that would be just fantastic. Not today. Okay, folks. Well, look, I will say goodnight to you all. I want to thank you so much for being here, for giving me an hour and 15 minutes, 16 minutes now of your time, especially Seamus, Yvonne, and Sheriff. I really appreciate it. Honestly, I do hope that you get these manuals. They are really useful. And we also do follow-up. If you need help on them, you can always contact us and we'll help you out to get through them. If you want to follow it up to have somebody to work with, we can help you with that too. Okay? And for any questions on the book. So I really would encourage you, get these materials tonight and get started. They'll be sent out to you ASAP. Right, folks, I will say goodnight. So thank you, Seamus, Yvonne, and Sherrod. Have an absolutely beautiful rest of your evening. Thank you so much for your time, and hopefully we'll see you again soon. Okay? Bye for now.